really early on there, you said you're getting precognition like 3 or 4 seconds before something would be said or something would happen. So I'm going to ask you, for the men out there listening and they've heard that and they go, what does Will mean? Like he got it 3 or 4 seconds before. What did you get? Was it a knowing? Was it words? Was it a vision? Was it like what came through?
It was almost a video precast. It was like
Wow.
watching something on a screen in my brain before it happened. And it's usually this little window. It's like the mind's eye, so to speak. Sitting in class, I would see something about to be shown or a teacher about to be say something, and I could say it before they were going to say it.
Mm.
It was right there. And it was like I was just living a little bit ahead of synchronization with time. I was driving down a 6-lane highway in North Texas going to Dallas. And it was night. There were nothing but taillights and people going the usual speeds above the interstate. And I saw out the corner of my eye, right beside me in the driver's side view, and in my mind's eye, a little red car just smashing into others. And I heard it just really loudly. I experienced this crash. I'm like, wow, I'm not in a crash. And I kind of panicked for a second and I slowed down. And I looked around, and because I had slowed down and thought that I was in a crash, maybe 1 to 2 seconds later, smash, that exact thing happened. And I was already slowed down and backed off enough that I was not involved in that crash.
Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Bites. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. My guest today, Will Heitz, has lived a life where intuition has always been close at hand. From vivid childhood visions and uncanny moments of knowing, to profound personal experiences with the unseen, he's learned to navigate both the physical and spiritual worlds. In recent years, Will has reawakened and developed his intuitive gifts, deepening his connection to his higher self and exploring how these abilities can help others live with more awareness and purpose. Will, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Doug. It's an honor to be here. You've had some great coverage so far, so I'm very eager to explore any questions and help anyone I can.
All right. So, a real intro question for you was like, how did your, we'll call it awakening, begin? Like, when did it begin and how? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing when we say awakening because it assumes that it just one day comes and a lot of people have some point of maturation in their teenage years or experiences that are kind of interesting, and that can do with the hormonal things or then clinically when I say, oh, they're having a psychotic break or their schizophrenia shows up. I was really young. I mean, well before kindergarten, barely able to look out the window when I first saw children playing in the backyard in the old schoolhouse I grew up in. It was a since been made into a residence. But it's one of those things where you keep filtering it out. And all, but throughout my childhood, there was always a presence, and I would see or notice things, shadow figures, people would call them, and some of these other things in the other side of the world. And there's these energy presences there. But I lived in a world of fear. I lived in this world of the prescribed Christian beliefs and other things I had inherited were there. So what I learned later in my teenage years, things got really strong, where I was almost, I wouldn't say mind reading directly, but it's like I could hear or see what people were saying before they were even not even saying it sometimes, sitting in classes, bored out of my mind. I'm not saying I was an F student. I was a straight A student, unfortunately, in high school and taking college courses when I was still in high school. But I had this sort of precognition of things as well. It's like 3 to 4 seconds before you see something, it would just happen. Or I would go to sleep, dream something, and I would see the whole sequence unfold during school. So it really started blooming around 17-ish, say late 16, 17 or so, I would say. And a lot of that had to do also with I had claimed a space in my house in a very traditional sort of like, okay, this is my energy, not someone else's energy. And I can explore it. There's some science I've explored around that to where there are frequencies of energies or interdimensional energies that don't connect with ours, and we might see them as being darker beings or quote unquote evil. I don't believe in good or evil anymore by any means. Don't think there's anything like this. But those frequencies don't align with ours, and they distort our ability to see clearly. And when that interference happens, it triggers fear mechanisms, or what we think we need to react to some way with some sort of dominance. And these bodies, too, in my interpretation, are just tailless monkeys crawling around, right? So we're always running around in the state of feeding ourselves, potential panic, and sometimes we hit the top of the triangle at organization and structure and comfort, which is where we reach at the meditative practices. But also at this time, that's just this confluence of events. I started exploring the humanities more and had more access to travel. I had a car, so I could buy books. So I was reading self-hypnosis books at the same time also, and getting some out-of-body experiences with that. And just really in Carl Jung's works, I was heavily reading a lot of German philosophy from like Hegel and others, just to get some foundational works of how to understand the world and the consciousness that was labeled in the sort of, that was the Victorian mindset, like this is the ordered system, and then the materialist mindset. And it's weird. The quote unquote awakening started them, but it really wasn't something where I appreciated it as an intuitive gift or something from the universe outside of myself. Like everyone, then I realized everyone can do this. And I kept asking myself, how can I just snap this in everyone's mind? Wouldn't it be nice if we could have really efficient information exchanges without all these barriers of words that we're not 100% sure of on the meaning of, right? It's like the fidelity repetition or something like that in a recording and playing it back. What if we could achieve 100% fidelity with our thoughts, the purity of vision, our uniqueness, without becoming the Borg, where it's like, okay, it's all singing the same song, but that's there. But beyond that, our uniqueness is still heard. Our distinct voices is always growing and developing. And I think that's what we are here meant to do. We are here to develop our distinct voice and grow with that. And parallel real quick there on a side tangent, like in one of my Orthodox Jewish friends would say that everyone's called to produce their own song in life. And it's the same thing we see with a lot of other civilizations for tens of thousands of years of history, even before Judaism, is the idea that people resonate with their own iconic spirit or song or frequency or mantra that's often used, and that somehow I think floats above this survivalist level of frequencies we adapt on the song, so to speak. So that's why I bridged off of the bridge to say that there's the awakening, but how can we make everyone get on first off the same wavelengths and aware that there is this wavelength that we're all ride the waves we can surf on every day and we're using, and then there's this medium of technology and what we call a job and capitalist infrastructure to enable us to exchange things, and we have this whole gauze, all of these lenses we're wearing all the time to attempt to make sense of all of this, to calm us down, or eat something that assuages the gut bacteria that we're fed by a maybe pharmaceutical company, or maybe we're growing in our own backyard to make us feel better. And the opportunity with that is to say that, okay, so let's just level set. We all know if everyone can just first be aware of level one, the base of the pyramid, it exists for every one of these physical bodies. We do have these baseline brainwave concepts that go through that we can monitor the fMRIs and see what's happening with base level consciousness, calm everyone. What is unique about us? What is the higher self? And I personally believe, I'm totally taking your question to another parallel with this, because I'm trying to define what is awakening. Um, and the analytical mind is always there. And it's the idea that, okay, so the baseline existed, and I always wanted to have this open communication, but like, what is my uniqueness? It wasn't until I was probably really in my 40s that I realized my uniqueness, so to speak. I started realizing, because I loved Bach as a child. I love classical music. I had the thema of fugue systems or orchestration of instruments and unique frequencies. That was a good analogy or metaphor for life with me with a lot of things, as well as a passion for cultivating living things like gardening. And so I could appreciate those. But it wasn't until I was in my 40s, I'm like, wow, I got a tool set from Crystal Heinemann's courses and psychic intuition development that really kind of jumped all the books I had taken, read, and consumed before. And I had worked with some other psychics, like, exercise the mind, free the soul, and some of these other works that they were just basic meditations and trying to visualize things and animal communications. And I would get things and impressions. But through these tools, just grounding energy, learning to understand energy, even though it wasn't immediately a physical sense of sensation. It wasn't like I was touching each end of a battery, so to speak, physically and feeling a charge go through my body. It was very much like, okay, visualize this and then just feel like, just shake and let go of the release, the adrenal cortical sort of like, oh, release and sigh. And the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system, everything coming up and saying, calm down now, calm down, which meditation achieves. There's no question about the science behind this. But what that was doing is bringing down this. I could like I always visualize when I bring myself into meditation or ground myself, my spirit body, my energy body. Most people, almost everyone, can feel this outside of themselves. And with breathing exercises or meditation, you feel kind of sinking in or nesting in between your eye, like overlaying yourself. And it is a different presence. It's a fun foundational presence to mindfulness practices. And I've worked for a Catholic healthcare organization for several years, and mindfulness was a big part of that organization, believe it or not, with breathing exercises and reflections and meditation. And those who would practice that, you could sync up with them much more readily as to just get to the point. It was far more meaningful and direct. It wasn't the superfluous fluff in like the technical review and discussion of things. It was, this is what it does, this is where we're going to go with it. Let's get to the core point of how we can act on this. And that was
So when
very,
you say you're communicating with people there, like at that organization, were they clients or were they other workmates?
there were mostly other workmates.
Oh,
Yeah.
so the
So
employer
clients,
encouraged mindfulness,
yes,
and those who followed through, you're saying when you met with them to discuss work stuff, the communication was much easier.
absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. It was
Okay, great.
much more one-minded, you might use the word for it.
Yeah.
And
So
not in
you're
a
able to
bad way.
get onto the facts of what you were doing and be far more productive through.
Precisely.
Yeah. And the mindfulness that you're talking about is going within meditation, breathing purposefully, etc.
There were a number of opportunities, pathways, so breathing exercises, sometimes just reflective opportunities. And I would say this in the history of studying humanities from Aristotle and beyond, or even Socrates, is the idea that when we reflect on arts, higher arts, that is to say, things that are informed to communicate something, whether it be sculpture and our brains physically looking at this sculpture, it sets and it configures something that we're reflecting in ourselves, our mirror neurons or other things are looking at this and evaluating against ourselves, saying, okay, let's status check. I think that's physiologically happening. But beyond that, we were encouraged to, read a poem or read a passage out of some theological work, or share a reflection by someone else who there's something that's happened in my life and this is what it meant. And it brings down that it calms the emotional body a lot, whereas which is a beautiful thing in and of itself. But it also helps us say that, okay, this is the physical reality that we're living in and be aware of that at the same time, which invites then the spiritual energy body to be more present. And you're aware that, okay, I am one being, I am one whole person. It's not this distancing of self from my work body or work person, more of the whole person concept.
Excellent. Yeah, and I've just written that down. Like, so that is really good info for people listening out there. It's like, what? Why should I develop my intuition? Why should I be more mindful, etc.? And you're stating facts that more productive in the workplace, be able to get past the fluff, enjoy your conversations with fellow workers, with other people, and that's why I've got the podcast, because I like to talk to people about deep and meaningful things. And it's not like we need to go super deep, but we can get past the surface level very quickly, and we can talk about the meat of things. And as far as the universe is concerned, the stuff that I can talk about is nothing compared to what's out there, but it's still at a level that I enjoy more than just, like you say, fluffing around talking about the weather or whatever. So yeah, that's great. And I know that in your intro there, something else you said, you're getting really early on there, you said you're getting precognition like 3 or 4 seconds before something would be said or something would happen. So I'm going to ask you, for the men out there listening and they've heard that and they go, what does Will mean? Like, he got it 3 or 4 seconds before. What did you get? Was it a knowing? Was it words? Was it a vision? Was it like, what came through for
It
you?
was almost a video precast. It was like
Wow.
watching something on a screen in my brain before it happened. And it's usually this little window. It's like the mind's eye, so to speak. My brain was probably or more just powerful when I think I was in my teens. So that everything was optimal and the body function. And like now I can go into vision state. I can meditate and see things very clearly sometimes. It's crazy. It's absolutely impossible. But as sitting in class, I would see something about to be shown or a teacher about to be say something, and I could say it before they were going to say it.
Mm.
It was right there. And it was like I was just living a little bit ahead of synchronization with time, right? And I've played with that in the hypothesis, in the science fiction hypothetical sense, right? Like, okay, why am I experiencing this a little bit before it happens? But I think some of that's attributable to if anyone else wants to substantiate this with their own experience or studies, the out of body meditation, when we do this and we're looking at something like the first time I did, I was looking at the popcorn texture in the ceiling and something like that. I'm like, wow, I'm not in my body. And I looked at my body and like it was this thing where it was too real to be real.
This is
And I
during a
could not.
meditation or
Yeah,
right?
it was just a deep meditation and letting myself release from my body. There were steps to it. There are several books on this with out of body meditation and other experiences. And while you're still conscious, it's keeping that lucid state. And there were no drugs involved. I'm going to put that out there also. I was not drinking anything. I was eating chicken and drinking milk. I mean, that was my life in those days. So the opportunity was, to understand how and why this is happening. But I say that because I think some of these practices just kind of let me see the time sink of the world differently, not being stuck in this physical concrete body. And that's a whole other level of exploration that I've always been let myself. I've always say don't something about my body says I'm scared to do it. Experiment with this more because it's scary to leave your body and be aware of it.
Mm.
I'll
So
put that out.
instead of being a bit slow, you're a bit fast.
Yes,
You,
yes,
you don't take too long to get it. You've already got it before it's said or actioned. Yeah.
yes. And I kept testing myself. It's like it would happen a few times a day almost usually, and I would test myself. And of course, when you're in the same environment in class all the time with the school, you see all the repeated patterns. You might say your brain's just pre-forecasting things because our brains are just big prediction engines in their core, little wiring bits that you're thinking about the physical things. And I'm like, okay, how much of this is this just the materialistic neurology that's happening with my brain? But there was just so many bizarre things. Like students wouldn't have strange arguments or fights in the hall, or they were not real physical fights, but they might have like push each other or something like that. I would see that happen before it happened, and I'm like, okay, I see this. Then it would unfold a little bit later. And so that wasn't a daily occurrence. My brain wasn't predicting that. And unless our brains really are super predictive engines, and maybe with meditation, I was just in sync with the predictive engine. It's always back and forth with me, like how much of this material world is 100% not material world. That's a whole other conceptualization that I'm open to, but that's a simultaneous overlap of this stuff. So, so yes, it was a little bit faster, and by precognition, I mean it was literally a video it was usually video pre, like audio. I could hear, see.
Wow.
I didn't have any other sense. I didn't feel anything really like in my body, but yeah, I would describe it like a video.
Yeah. And years ago, I would, I mean, I'm here trying to help men develop their intuition, like realize why they should do it, etc. And I think most of the reason is I've never experienced what you're talking about. And for a long time, I've always sort of down on myself thinking, oh, I'm not intuitive, I can't be intuitive, etc., etc. And they say, where your mess is where your message is. And my mess is I would like to have that stuff. And years ago, I was not envious, but I was always striving for what you're talking about. And I've never had an experience like that. But it doesn't bother me. I'm just like, this is who I am. And my intuition comes through in much more subtle ways, but it also has big effects because I've followed synchronicities and intuitions through my life that have, when you tell people what you've done, they've just gobsmacked. They're like, how did you get the guts or the courage to do that? And it's like, because synchronicities lined up that were so obvious to me that if I didn't follow them, the universe was going to like just put me on hold because it was like, we just handed you this on a platter. Yes, it's a very difficult pill to
Mhm.
swallow, but the rewards have been phenomenal. And so I have people looking at parts of my life, like going, whoa, how, like, that's just an awesome life you've lived. And it is. But I've just had synchronicities pop up and I've recognized them and had the courage to follow them. And in the beginning, the synchronicities were small and minor and I wasn't putting my neck on the block. Like if I followed it and it didn't work, no one was going to notice except me. Yeah. But the reward was minimal. And I use reward very loosely for the sake of a better word, but the benefit, whatever. But I've been taken to for me, I've been taken to the edge of like craziness where like everyone I knew would look at me like I was a madman and I was a fool and an idiot and incompetent and just, but I took the risk and the benefit, reward, whatever you want to call it, was phenomenal. And
Mm.
so now I'm just happy with who I am and what I am. I'm content. And I love listening to what you've gone through. And I'm like, oh wow, that's what I'm saying. Like, how did you got this 3 or 4 seconds before? What did you get? Like, like, and the precognition and it makes sense, like, because time's suggestible, like whatever it is. And I love hearing what you've got. And I'm no longer envious of what you've got, but I love hearing what you've got. And I think, I wonder if I could just get 1% of that one day would be, you know, yeah.
Well, so my thought on that is all of us are living across this sort of fractal dimension of all of these things are happening at once. There's one theory. I think there's maybe some observation of that, or we at least we judge what we're seeing as an observation of that. It's the again we change the reality as we see it sometimes, the observer effect in some of these things, and the opportunity is to look at and say, you know what, if I'm already experiencing this, what part of me is do I need to connect with to see that, or I'm filtering out. To your point about synchronicities, once you recognize one, your brain starts seeing the pattern. It's the pattern. And then we tune to the frequencies of those patterns, right? And it's just like hearing a new sound, like, oh, I get that. I know that song, so to speak. Now, I've heard parts of it. Or we start saying, thinking about what's going to come next. And that's when we start manifesting our own reality, so to speak, or generating things that happen. You are informing the next pattern in the synchronicity by following those frequencies or forming or hearing the frequency finally. And it takes repetition. Just to say that, the sort of awakening question back to that, or, how do you reach any of these points of intuition? I never in my, well, I'll say I have to mention the mediumship things at some point, but we'll get to that. The idea of it is that the more practicing the grounding of energies and synchronizing myself, being letting my physical body just kind of like step back from its needs and material world needs, the more I can observe these patterns or these synchronicities and other things. And I can only recommend that as the most powerful tool I know. That's the most practiced for thousands of years of history. And even whether it involves chanting or sound bowls or whatever other pathways people take to help achieve that attunement and letting themselves be open up to the higher self. Absolutely, I think that it opens the door up to any of these things. It's all possible.
Mhm.
And I'll say that in your situation too, you probably are. This is the thing. It's like we are seeing everything that's already happened. And I'm going to bounce on the other side of past life views or things that have happened are very can be since a lot of people have this, and with there are accounts of children born 4 years old and they're talking about these vivid details that have happened to them in their past life. It is almost impossible in these documentaries to, I mean, yes, you could spoof something, they could have fed information, but it's like the observation and meditation of past lives is also very present and observable. There are details people get with remote viewing and so forth. Again, it's not happening at that time that they're in, but 20 years ago, maybe that structure was built at those coordinates. They see a number of the latitude, they see a longitude number, or they can describe all the scenes around there, and there's a building. Well, today it's demolished. Maybe it's a concrete pad, but there was something there at that time that they were describing. And so we can see backward. And a lot of those people in remote viewing also have reportedly seen forward as well, to your point. So I think there are definitely pathways. It's a matter of also like, I didn't choose mine. I wasn't trying to see it happened. Since then, I've only had that a couple of times in weird before freak accidents. And it was the classic thing where like you see it happening before it's happening. I was driving down a 6 lane highway in North Texas going to Dallas, and it was night. There were nothing but taillights and people going the usual speeds above the interstate. And I saw out the corner of my eye, right beside me in the driver's side view, and in my mind's eye, a little red car just smashing into others. And I heard it just really loudly. I experienced this crash. I'm like, wow, I'm not in a crash. And I kind of panicked for a second and I slowed down. And I looked around, and because I had slowed down and thought that I was in a crash, maybe 1 to 2 seconds later, smash, that exact thing happened. And I was already slowed down and backed off enough that I was not involved in that crash.
Yeah.
Again, I think that was just what I call in the new language I've learned a download, or, my guides putting this with me. And by guides, I don't mean that I'm talking to, whatever you want to label these creatures. I think they're all some people. I literally see different family members sometimes who've passed, but it's also a matter of higher self too. I think everything the universe is us. It's a singular and infinite thing at the same time, right? So you and I'm not going to put this out there, are the same, but yet we are also the same thread of energy. We're right now distinct threads of energy, but we're all that same center of energy, the divine or the universe, as you would say it. So yeah, I want to put that out there for anyone who's like, guides, you're schizophrenic, maybe, but also no, these I can tell you things that you're just I don't know, I don't see. And you're like, oh no, that was my Aunt Sarah. Or, it's funny. I mean, anyway, that's the mediumship thing. So
Yeah, yeah. And I believe that there are benevolent forces out there that love us, that have got our best interests at heart, and they're constantly trying to get information to us to help ourselves and help others. And because, as you say, we're all one. We are all connected. We're not an island. And if you want to try and be on your own and be an island, it's not going to be, it's enjoyable as if you connect to other people. And yeah, and I just have this thing now. I like connecting to people who've can start to see things like this, like you, hence I'm talking to you. Yeah, and it's one, and I love everything you're saying, and it's taking us in a lot of directions. I've had a lot of questions as
sorry.
you've been going. No, it's fine. I love it. It's great. But like you say, you didn't. When you say you didn't choose this, I'm thinking, well, maybe you did before you incarnated here.
Right, right. I think my higher self, and I've had discussions with other people in healing arts and who are mediums, intuitive, right? So, psychic for another word for it. And they're like, they usually do see me with like walking with a staff in somewhere, or the sort of like uh it's just like a guide type role, right? So something ministerial or sorcerer like or whatever, it's like the mystic. That's the good word for it.
So
In
they're
previous
seeing
communities.
you not here. They're seeing the real will elsewhere as the mystic. Yeah,
Yeah.
and see again, I love that because we have this as we grow up as kids. We watch TV. We saw famous people on TV. Whether they be wonderful or not, and we have like our idols. But here, like I could be sitting here talking to a sage, a mystic, or whoever, whatever. Like in other realms, and it's like really cool. It's like I we don't know who we're bumping into and who we're talking with, etc. It's just, and from my early Christian days, I just remembered a scripture there. It talks about oh something about angels unaware or something like that, that we will come, like we will be unaware of angels in our life. Like they could be walking next to us down the street, stopping something from falling on us or whatever. There'll be angels and we'll be unaware of them. And so there's so many things that happen every day that are mundane, average, normal, and hence you with your car, like they didn't want you to be involved in that accident, and it just wasn't the right thing for you to be involved in that accident. And so they, bought things, they sped things up a little bit to, this is how will get it. Um, you know, um, yeah. So yeah, no, I love all that. It's yeah, really, really, really cool. Now, animal communication you mentioned earlier. Tell us about that. I got 4 dogs at my
I
house,
always
so I'm interested.
I love this, and I mean, I'm going to preset this by saying that I've always, as a child, just had animals were like my emotional bond, right? It's like I was one of those kids who's like, I love my dog, I love animals, I love all animals. So I've always had this bond, but it was always filtered through, uh, and I think animals responded well to me. I had very good, calm connections with animals. They would show up in my childhood a lot. Big giant owls would sit in the fence, and it's like, I felt like they were talking to me. I look out the window or something as I was a kid, but I I I always wanted to just have this like Beastmaster as a child. You have this fantasy or these characters you read about where it's like, oh yes, I could ask the animal to do something, but that was all ego forward. And the big key I'm going to say about intuition is it's not. I mean, someone may practice this. It'd be interesting to see. I don't. practice ego forward or pushing my own agenda, like, oh, you must say this with these human words. Animal communication I've gotten is about visions and impressions and feelings. I rarely hear a word as humans would call a word. What I do get, I remember the first time I was giving a reading for someone, they're asking me, what does so and so like to do? And they showed me a photo of the animal, which I don't need to see photos anymore, but that was my opening door to this practice. And I saw this dog being rocked in a rocking chair with his mother. I'm like, he really loves being rocked in the rocking chair. He loved that time with you. He wants to do that again before he goes. Because it was getting to be a senior dog. But it was these visions. I see them very like I'm there watching it in the mind's eye. And so it's kind of like purpose-driven communication initially. Sometimes I get this, my brain translates it now into human words like, no, I don't want to do that. Or if the owner says, or the dog might say, I really don't like it when they stand and brush their hair over here. It's just they might actually, that's what the human words are coming more translated in my brain now. But it's the series of like fast images more now and things that aren't, it's not human. Let me put it out there also. I think that humans aren't speaking human as an animal. We have our own innate language we probably would have been using 100,000 years ago or a million years ago that would not have been with these words. I just put that out there. And even if it was more grunts and whatever, fine. But that's the same thing with animals because they don't have this weird filter and these words that have to mean something in that context. It's contextual, but it's also not. And they're also less aware of time than we are. I think that we're very like aware of our aging and time and everything that happens. When we talk to animals, what happened yesterday might have happened 2 years ago. And that's a recency thing too with them also. So they might say, I might have a communication where oh, well, it's a different thing. Like I was thinking of someone a few days ago where their back thigh or their right by their spine and the back leg. It's like I see the area kind of glowing up. There are tools I can use in meditation if I'm not getting a clear message from the animal, or I see them getting really stiff and they're just moving like this. But the animal doesn't necessarily feel stiff necessarily, but I'm seeing their body just not being able to move well. So sometimes it depends on the pathway I'm using to kind of communicate what's happening with them to message this. And I ask, is that the animal showing me this, or my guides are showing me the animal like this sometimes? But I'll say it in the word general communication is very not human because there are no word for words. It's just me. I know there's some trans filter going on between the words and me saying like, oh, this is what they're saying, and then it's confirmed by usually some sort of response from the presence, like yes or no, or my guides can do that really easily for me too. Just put up the words yes or no on my mind's eye when I'm in meditation. But the animals themselves, it's not like I hear barking or a bird whistling a lot, unless they want me to hear that. I want to say, like for you this morning, my morning, or your dawnish area, which wasn't too long ago in Australia, probably. Do you ever get, or did you share with me at some point, or I forget, a bird that lets you know that things are going to go okay for the day, or like you were checking in? Someone was checking in about this meeting today, and I saw this little bluebird-like figure. It was like you were seeing it out a window. It was coming to you in your vision. And it has a message for you. There's a bird that tries talking to you. Um, and I'm going to say that because I was checking in with you earlier, just a few hours ago, to say, okay, is this going to happen today? Like, okay, yeah, we're on our call, and but that's another idea of how these intermediaries work, right? And um, the bird was doing what it mechanistically does with joy, whatever you want to call that, but it was transacting in the physical world just to kind of check in and make this bridge. So
Yeah.
I'll
And
I'll
we
leave
have a
that.
lot. I live out on acreage and we have a gazillion birds around here. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Someone's probably like, that's just a safe bet. There are birds everywhere. I'm like, there are no birds around me right now. They might be in a tree a few hundred
yeah.
feet away, but
Yeah, we got
we
them
haven't seen them.
everywhere. Yeah, yeah. Actually,
But
recently, one of the dogs here is a half toy poodle, like very very small, and has got ridiculous energy, chasing balls and things. And the last 3 weeks, we've had a sea eagle out here prowling around whenever he's running around, and we have to pick him up real quick, get him inside because it just hides in the tree. We've got so many trees, and we've never
Wow.
seen one here before, and now all of a sudden, yeah, it's yeah. So we get a big variety.
This makes me questions. Uh, I would almost offer to do a reading. It's weird to break off this intellectual interview into that, but I could offer to that. We could do that outside of this call, perhaps, if you want to record
Yeah,
that sometime and use it for posterity, or just
yeah,
between us.
yeah. No, I'd
I'd
love
love to
that.
talk
Yeah,
about that.
yeah,
So yeah, and I don't get as many, like I usually have to solicit people, like, they talk about their dog, or the dog's having an issue or a complication that they're about to pass, usually is when people want to connect with their dog, sadly. So I'll invite anyone out there that has a feeling with connection with any animal, even if you're a farmer and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna raise this pig and I'm going to sell it off to the market or eat it someday. There's nothing wrong with asking yourself or the universe, like, is there a what does the pig have to say to me? What is the reality of that? But yeah, it's usually people with this emotional bond, and we know it's going to happen. We're being prepared by our guides of the universe for something, within usually 6-ish months or so. And the opportunity is to say, you know what, maybe we should talk earlier. We should always be trying to open ourselves up and talk to our dogs. And that's what I'll say is my impetus for also being interested in animal communication. I don't want to be a little ball because the dog needs energy, no, or exercise. It needs to be something a little more than that.
yeah. And so this is a service you offer now online.
I offer that, yeah, absolutely. They can go to my Greenville consultations site and schedule something, or reach out via email, however, so I don't have the most robust scheduling system or anything like that.
Yeah, no worries.
But it's just kind of like, word of mouth, or when someone asks. It's been work colleagues in the past too, like a nurse, and they talk about their dog, or have a photo of the dog and start talking about it. And like, would you like me to talk to your dog? And
Yeah,
so, I'll usually I'll go home in a different environment outside of a hospital or somewhere where I'm talking to that person, and meditate and talk to the dog. And that's where I'll get these photos. And it usually is dogs, because dogs are definitely here for us to connect with and learn love and infinite compassion.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
their primary goal. So,
yeah. I know. Look, our dog's about to turn 8. So, and when I say our dog, and I said we had 4, like officially one of them is my wife and my dog. Um, I when I was a kid, I had a dog and loved the dog, but I was just at the stage where she wanted to buy a dog and have one. I'm like, oh, we've just like wound this business up. We've got time, we've got money. I want to travel. I want to go. I don't want a dog that, now I've got to find a kennel to put it in while we go away for a couple of weeks. Like, like I don't want a dog. I don't want a dog. I don't want a dog. And then I go and I visit a lady who's doing biotuning. And I
mhm.
go along for a session, and it was a wonderful session and delightful lady. And we're just talking about things, and Amanda's talking about they'd just got a dog. And I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah. And she's telling me about the dog while I'm laying on the table, and she's got her tuning forks going around. And then I said to her about, yeah, my wife wants a dog. Oh, I don't want a dog. I want to go traveling and da da da. And then she just said, she wasn't trying to talk me into it, but she said, you know, whenever every single time our dog enters the room, the energy changes for the better. Like it lights the room up. The kids, like, their faces, their expression on their faces change. The dog comes in wagging its tail, and I'm like, hmm. So anyway, I relented, and we got a dog. A month or two later, we got a dog, and she's so delightful. Like, and talk about the energy change when she comes into the room. Like, it's just, and every dog, and we've now got our son's Belgian Shepherd sort of temporarily while they've moved out of their house, going to sell it. That he's living with his in-laws, and the dog can't fit there. So it's out because we've got acreage, and it's middle of winter at the moment. So we let her sleep inside at night because I mean, it doesn't get below freezing, but it gets down pretty close to that. And she's a big dog, and she's about 9 and super delightful. Like so obedient. Our son was very good, and Belgian shepherds, they're like a German Shepherd, but very dark, and they're very, very intelligent. They're used in Europe for, like police work and all sorts of crazy things. And this girl, she is just so placid and delightful, but so obedient. And but you can see she's wanting to tell you stuff all the time. You're just looking at her
Mhm.
thinking, what is that message that you were trying to get through to me? And sometimes I think the messages start coming, but I think I put a little bit of a block up because it's probably telling me something that I don't want to hear. It's like, yeah, I haven't got time to take you outside right now and run and go crazy. And yeah, and she loves it because we've got a running stream. Like our boundary is a running stream, and so like you'll throw the ball with the big. You put the ball in the big long plastic thing and flick it so you can really throw it a long way. And after she's done that a dozen times, she just drops the ball and she runs straight into the creek. Summer or winter, cools off in the creek for sort of 20 seconds and then back out, energized again. Off we go again. And same as the little one, the little toy poodle, he does the same thing. Like I think
Mhm.
he would actually run chasing the ball until his heart exploded if you would let him. He
Yep.
doesn't have an off switch ever. And you can do it for 60 minutes straight and he will not stop. His legs are shaking.
Amazing.
His legs are shaking. He can barely stand up. He'll still chase the ball 100 miles an hour. Yeah, they're amazing
Yeah.
dogs.
I think one of the things you talk about the energy in the room, dogs and other animals do this too, but they transmute energies. So even if it was good or bad energy or just a frenetic mess of energies, they help translate or can transmute that energy into something that's more grounded. Obviously, they are grounded animals. They're on the ground, running around the ground. But beyond that, they kind of are this balance. Like you said, it's a balancing force that the animals offer usually, and more so when they're teaching us their service and teaching us compassion or love. Often it's a matter of just bringing our energies to this level of like contentment and acceptance, and that's exactly what you're describing. And one other thing I was seeing this very clearly for you and anyone else who wants to talk to their dog, really talk to their dog, let go of the words and open yourself up to any pictures, but also if you want to connect with the animal, let go of their vision of their body. I mean, you're describing this beautiful Belgian Shepherd, and I'm seeing what my brain is putting for. Oh yeah, I know what a Belgian Shepherd looks like. Yeah, they're sleek, shiny fur, they're gorgeous, big ears. And the thing that I'm seeing here is like look past that. Like look, if you're talking to the dog, picture its face like in yours, but then even closer, like it's just the eyes, or even back past the eyes. Look past the eyes of this dog in your mind's eye. Kind of close your eyes, let it visualize to you. And you don't have to be in the same room with animals either. Remarkably, anywhere on the planet in space time, you can have a communication even with animals that passed on, just like people. Uh, and as long as you have, usually it needs someone who there's a weird permission thing with some people and their animals. Like some people will come in if you're talking to their animals, or they just kind of like it's like they won't let you talk to animals sometimes unless you have permission to that. At least I feel that way when I talk to animals. I ask the human in their life if that's okay. And because sometimes they'll say, this person's got cancer, and keeping it under control, or some other strange things, and they won't just say cancer, but it'll be like they're showing me some weird, uncomfortable thing that looks like a growth, or that looks like it's causing problems, and then I'm interpreting that to be a cancer, as far as something that is not part of their body and definitely out of control. And the animal is like, you know what, I'm balancing this person, I'm keeping it under control, and that's not uncommon. A lot of
So
different
you're
animals do
saying
that.
the human could have cancer and
Yes.
the animal's energy could be keeping it in balance so it doesn't spread or grow. Wow.
Yes. I think in a few years we'll probably be able to do some sort of EMF field. We can detect cancer sometimes with electrical current scanners now, right? And the opportunity there is to say that, well, if we can observe this with that, what about all the other electromagnetic fields around us and what other things are interacting with those fields? And if you think about an animal, their lives, there's so many other levels of animal communication and connection with these electromagnetic fields that they can manipulate. I'm going to say they can or they do by virtue of their being interact with nature and us to help respond and heal us. They are not these singular creatures we as humans put our egos on to say, okay, the horse is going to pull my cart. There's so much more to it than that. And dogs too. There's levity. They bring us happiness on the surface and comfort and emotional support and all these other wonderful things and keep us active. But I have an Australian cattle dog. He keeps me from sitting around my butt too long all day, obviously, because they're good for that. And but there's so much more communication there, and it's just in this other level of environmental modulation, if you want to put it. But also, I can say a lot of them come here like our own personal doctors at some level. So
Wow.
be prepared for that when you talk to them, because they want to help you. Animals want to help us. It's not the other way around. They're not here to eat and destroy us. I mean, it's not, there's not this weird thing going on like so many were programmed to believe by any means.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll say that even for spiders and other weird creatures that are.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And where we live now, like this is the first time we've lived on acreage, and we get the occasional snake. And my in the beginning, my wife was super freaked out. She's getting a lot better because she actually works a 5 minute drive up the road at a government school camp that is all about Aboriginal culture and nature and all sorts of things. And they've got an on-site snake handler. And so, I mean, it's not his role, but he happens to be qualified in that role. And they have, they don't, it's very treed and leafy, and they do get I mean, they get carpet pythons, which we get, and that's mostly what we see at our home. But they get others, that are a little bit more harmful potentially if you stood on them. And so, yeah, he handles those and moves them out of the way. And my wife's seen him handle them so many times now that she's still not going to get near them, but she is not going to climb onto the roof
You're
like
right.
she would have before. And yeah, so yeah, all you see all of those sort of things, and I say to her when she see it, I say, look, I'll whip downstairs and on the bookshelf, and I've got my little book on spirit animals, and we'll pull it out and have a bit of a look at what's the message, and it's always a positive message, and yeah, yeah. So you're saying so snakes and spiders are here for our benefit as well?
Absolutely. And we look at it like, I mean, you could look at it in a materialist sense and say, okay, these are all bits of parts of a big computer where everything's got its function. I mean, the spider is interacting to process some other part of energy move transfer or store something, and that's the bigger web of life thing, so to speak, to use another metaphor. But the other part of animals, as far as like orchestrating our environment, and there's a good book about this, being animals as the blueprints of our soul. I read a long time ago, whereas like they are the architects of how we're going to experience life and the opportunities put in front of us. Opportunity meaning we do have choice. Obviously, this free will thing is quite real for most people most of the time. But they say, okay, you're going to, your first 30 years are going to be like this, or this is your environment, and these are your family members. And they say these are what you're going to experience. You're going to go through this formal institution, or you'll learn to become an expert baker, and food things will be your way of experiencing to love and learn. It's all about, at the end of the day, learning to love and expand the awareness of love in all things. That's the universe, but it goes through this orchestration of the animals. And to get there, and with spiders is a perfect example of this. They're so alien. Um, they come down a little spider web as a baby and they land on you. They're like one of the creatures shoots out webs, or and does some of the weird things with different. Some of them have such different types of what we call venom, and it is a venom for a purpose, or just eating things alive sometimes. So unique creatures, and yet if you talk to them, what I experience, and I don't do this frequently, I've done this mostly out of respect and fear when I've actually been like an urgent message. One was right outside the front door when I was living in Texas. It was as big as a brick. It was a wolf spider of some type, and like a 2 by 6 or 8 brick.
Mm.
It's just spread out there. And like this thing, I thought it was a mouse at first, a pretty fat, chunky mouse. And it was right there at the door. I'm like, it's going to get smashed if it moves in the door. If it runs on me or the dog I was taking out for a walk at the time, it's going to be an incident. And, because on my monkey bike, like, I'm going to, swat it or something. And I got up close and I didn't even think about what to do. It came to me in just intensely, intuitively. I was right up in its face in like its first eye set, and I could feel it vibrating. it was I could feel the vibration of this creature. And then I realized that a lot of these creatures, like spiders and insects in particular, they vibrate more than other things. And dogs don't do this. You talk to a dog, they're kind of like this very, it's like talking to this kind of lumpy energy. It's just kind of, it's there and it's very solid. It's very, very controlled. Spiders are so much more integrated. So it's levels of integration with animals too. So when we have spiders doing things like this, like the more peripheral energy that is being, I use the word orchestrated, it's being ordered, it's being arranged and managed. Management's a good word for it too. And it's like look at all the different iterations of life that come from a moth to a spider, the prey and other cycle, whereas the moth they've co-evolved and everything that's co-evolved in these two different directions in the cycle of life they're literally just managing energy different points of energy as we're progressing through life as one larger being ourselves. Humans are very unique because of our strange predisposition at this stage in what we are to have intellect and so forth and what we call that these filters. Other animals don't usually have that. But look at the language other animals do have. Spiders do communicate, absolutely. We know that they have different, not only the vibration patterns, some varieties or species do, but the actual web patterns, obviously, in some species. We've shown different pairs of spiders or families. You have unique spiders from a whole species of 36 of them might hatch in a day, or hundreds, and they all have unique webs. This is a genetic language encoding, perhaps, but that's also part of our molecular expression or epigenetic expression of what we're doing right now is also part of the energy management in the world around us. So I use the words energy management when it comes to them and their purpose in our life, but pretty much everything. And of course, I'm just describing biological systems at that point. Like, yeah, anyone with a bio degree could probably say, yeah, that's pretty typical. We study that materialistically. But I will say that if you're intuitive and want to talk to the animals or practice something that we would intellectualize or use as our higher selves of like knowingness around what that animal is going to do and why it's there, their intent is usually pretty clear. So if you see a scorpion and you're scared, it's like, what is the scorpion doing? Well, it's sometimes they're just those are very also primitive create. The more primitive the creature, I use the word primitive as in recency of human idea of primitive because hundreds of millions of years ago, things were brand new. And they were the latest, most sophisticated expression. So primitive is relative. But if you see a scorpion on a rock versus some newer iteration of life, they're definitely going to be different vibrations. And the way they present themselves, it's like sometimes you see this thing that's more almost spiritual, like it's just heat and sun, it's soaking up. Like you just see sunshine when you're looking at this animal. It's just you see heat, like whatever that is. And that's how I feel it communicating. Like it's just there to soak up heat right now. That's all it's doing at that moment. Whether if it's sitting out there on that rock, it's not actively hunting or doing something. Whereas, some other animals, I mean, I swear that spider by the door, it moved away. I looked at it and back to the Texas reference. And after I felt it vibrating and I literally just said in my mind, like, you must go, just move on. And it was like, it just and vanished. Who knows how many other giant spiders like that were around, but I hadn't seen it since then, since that day. And I was always curious. And I kind of checked in another time and I felt like it was a distant, like in a tree or something at that point. But it's also a matter of like these other creatures. I'm trying to think something other than insect. It literally is anything. There are people who, very sophisticated animals like whales. If you think about how many life cycles they've gone from something that walked on land, again, 600 million years ago, not even probably more recent than that, maybe 60, to the swimming and pretty much just living in water their whole lives now. And this whole community, the echolocation and other, various different whales have different species, not different species and varieties of whales obviously have different types of sound communication and clicks and things they use. But, we're now decoding some of that and people, they have names as we call them. But we don't need the decoders. That's good to substantiate that. I would invite anyone to go out on a well, something like that, and just listen and say, "What do I hear? What is this? What is this saying?" But yeah, ground yourself, go through meditative state, turn your lower chakras down so it's not your body filtering things out, And there are a lot of good practices to do this if you're going to communicate to. I will say that if you really want to have a chat with an animal, there are a lot of meditative practices or grounding practices I do. It's not like I just walk out in nature and it's like, oh, the deer is saying this. But if I put myself in a state of mind and turn my body a little bit down and reroute the energy so that I can flow the higher energy channels out there, my third eye and throat chakra, and whatever's going on in my higher self to allow this message to come through there, it's very clear. And it's not even it's not like you see. I usually, again, if I'm not doing that, I'll feel things and see it very vividly. But I'm not seeing animals out there talking human either. I'll end it with that. So it's not like the deer is saying, "Oh, I'm having a great day." It doesn't work like that. What I see is them showing me something like, "Oh, there's a creek down the road," and they're going. I know they're going to go to the creek, and I don't know there's a creek down the road, but or down the hill somewhere. I could assume that maybe, but I'll see them like that's what they're thinking. That's their mission right now. They're on their way to the creek. So real basic stuff like that sometimes.
Yeah, interesting. And so people may be wondering, you've got this ability to communicate with animals like that, and to you were talking before about dogs, with things, with people, like their owner's got a problem and you're there to help. You're there sort of the dog's the medical intervention to keep the owner's energy balanced. Do you offer things like that for people? Do you
Yes.
give readings?
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting what shows up. I remember I learned some of these tools when I was taking my course, very specific things. There are tools I have in my tool set. Um, Sometimes people don't want to, they're resistant to knowing. I will say that. Sometimes people, often we know we have a problem and or it's manifesting as something else, and the person is absolutely sure that their arm pain is not related to a neck issue or something obvious in one level, but or maybe they had an injury and they think that's all the problem is. How do I feel better after this car wreck? Like, well, it's not your car wreck anymore. You now have an issue with your digestive tract, and that's really just zapping it's like I can see parts of the body acting different ways usually. A lot of people in my situation also have feelings of things. Depends on what's going on. I can see people doing things that aren't helping them in certain ways sometimes, whether it be an activity or just too much of an activity, or I can see people maybe drinking milk and they're like, "Oh, I love milk. I'm drinking it all the time." Well, that's your problem. And I have a process and methodology. It's a little different than someone just calling out what I see. Which is that I usually ask my guides, or in that moment, real in a split second, my intuition, why am I seeing this? What does that person need to know out of this? It isn't just me calling out saying stop drinking milk. I might ask them, I see you drinking milk. Do you do this every day? And you think you've done it your whole life, but maybe there's some other problem associated with this. And then I explore what else I'm being shown. But I'll do that before I share that. So I have
Mhm.
this sort of professional guide of, don't just call out whatever comes in your brain or what you think you're being shown. Ask why, ask your guides, validate that internally too now. And I advise people to do that too in classes or whatever. I always say, ask why you're seeing this. If you don't know what to say, when you see someone and maybe you see them like they're running their wrist around or something, or you see bandages wrapped around it, what does that mean? They may not physically have a bandaged wrist, but they might have something where it's been sprained, and that becomes across really clearly. And often when I work with people, sometimes I do offer my healing masters or my guides can help energy balance people, and it can make a difference. It's like Reiki and some of the other distance energy
Mhm.
work. That absolutely can make a difference. Um, Even if a person's not receptive to it, it's funny. If you have a disruptive roommate, I'll put this out to your audience, or someone disruptive in your life, and you want to work with a Reiki master, someone who practices Reiki, you yourself want to study Reiki, you could practice energy channeling and grounding that person remotely. They will behave differently. I swear, it's good. It makes a different world. I'm feeling like I'm neglecting this in the world right now. Like I should be. I like, why have I been doing this more in all these situations, saying it because I've seen it and I've practiced it. I'm like, okay, this is kind of practice it, and my brain's like surveying this and saying, oh, this works. What else would work? I have this constant analytical mind going through stuff, but the opportunity is like, yeah. So yes, I do see that. And one of some weird things I've seen before, obviously not all individuals are as they present physically also. Some people's energy bodies are we use words for things like male, female. Sometimes people have, other glands or organs in parts of their body that they're like, oh, yeah, as a child, I realized that. But, it's not a big deal. As an adult, I notice it. But I'll be shown that. And I'll have to ask them about that because it might be influencing them now. They might have a little bit of a hormonal bounce, or maybe why is their estrogen or testosterone high or low or something like that. And like, well, your individual body might want this, or there's a reason you chose that. And maybe we want to explore the spirituality, or maybe we want to explore the physical implications of what they're doing and who they are now. So yeah, health's this big spectrum, as you know. It's sometimes some people say the cancer's there for a reason too, because we want to learn something from that, or it's our body. It's something else that's challenging our body to develop differently. There are different philosophies. I'm not going to judge that.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. So that's great for the listeners. If you've got animal questions or animal issues or animal, it mightn't be an issue, but you might think it's an issue, or you're looking for help with animals or yourself. Um, what about just for men, some basic stuff that you think men could do to help develop their intuition? And I'm not even necessarily up to the level with you where they're going to see visions or precognitive 3 or 4 seconds ahead. But just some basic stuff. Some men are listening, thinking, "Well, I loved what you just said. That's awesome." That for them listening right now, it's out there. That's like 1,000 levels above where they're at. How do I get from level 1 to level 4 where you're at level of that? What's some basic stuff I can do? You're talking about meditation. What sort of meditations are you doing? How does it help? How long do I have to meditate? When I close my eyes, I keep wondering about what I'm going to have for lunch. Like what basic help can you offer to just
I,
take the men up a notch or two?
I've been there. Let me collaborate with the idea of masculinity in men. I have all these filters growing up in the Midwest in the United States too. Like, this is what it means to be a man, right? We all watch He-Man growing up in cartoons. So I get it. Let me just say, I 100% get that. And I practiced jujitsu in my 40s, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I saw the extreme stress of sport too. And I bring that back into that because it's usually this very masculinized thing. A lot of these contact sports are. And even it's the parallel though, because the same way you take care of your body, you train for something. Many men like to train for something. Maybe it's just a fitness pro regime. If I'm going to do my push-ups for the day or strive for 100 push-ups a day, that in and of itself, very parallel to, if not a form of meditation. And I'm going to take this another step. If you can walk and walk to the point where you actually feel your body feeling the walk, the burn, so to speak, but not just a burn. You don't have to go that far, but you're like, okay, I finally I'm letting go of stuff. And just the nature of physical walking. It's meditative walking is what it's called. Our bodies are meant to do this. We as humans, as bipeds, have a rhythm we create when we walk, unique to each of us. And well, obviously we do this in unison as marching soldiers and other things for a reason, because it's this co-meditative process. And I mean, putting that out there, but it's true. Cohesion theory and all these other things with where our mentalities at in our minds, socializing, we do this naturally. It's already in us. So don't question what you're doing that lets you feel like you're in a state of relaxation or control first. The one thing to do is to let go of the idea that you must do something and accept what you've already done or are doing as a practice. And then see what brings it to the other level. Like, is there a song I hear all the time when I think of something? Or I'm at the gym, I'm listening to music, and for a minute my mind just goes off. I'm working out, I'm relaxed. And what happens when I let my mind go? Because it's that same point that happens in a basic physiological meditation state. You've stopped the stress of the world pushing on you and you've come to rest. And at that point, you are open, your mind's open to say, okay, I'm not afraid of everything around me right now. My body's feel satiated. I'm not dying physically right now. That is number one. You're open to it. It doesn't take anything more than that to be open and aware. And when something does come, like really easy, like maybe you just picture like, oh yeah, you see your cat, like you see your spouse's cat go up to the legs and wrap around your spouse's legs. Like, why am I seeing this? Just ask why. Just be open to it. You're going to start seeing, as you started with the start of the show, these synchronicities. Like, oh wow, the cat was up there, and oh, my wife said, the cat was really friendly today. She's being really needy. I wonder why. And you're like, but then ask yourself, how did I see that? And be aware. Just let it happen. Just be aware that, yeah, I did see that happening. The universe was showing me something, and I confirmed it. And then you'll start seeing the pattern build. And with that, just appreciate it. Appreciation, allowance, and then appreciation and acceptance. So it doesn't take anything more than that. There are books and books and books and books and books about meditation and breathing exercise. They are great to get us to that same state if you're taking a long walk, if you're working out, if you're listening to music. Maybe you really just go to work and you're beating on drums. So your way of being, you're a great musician. Same thing. It lets you get in that synchronization with your higher self, out of the fear body that we live in this fake world of I mean, not to say capitalism is entirely fake, but yes, it is. It's the superfluous control fear system. Let it go. It's not there with you all the time. Once you do that and you start accepting that you're seeing this, or you have this recognition of, oh yeah, I thought I eat at this other store and it really made me feel better. Ask yourself why you got to see that, or why you feel better doing that, and then observe those patterns. And that's what intuition starts with. It's this really basic message. It might be like, oh, I feel like I should be eating this. Or I got this picture of, why is the cat acting like this? Well, and then I confirmed that later because I don't usually think about that. And after these patterns start building, then I would suggest, if you're curious, open yourself, just ask the universe. It doesn't take a book even. So you know what? I'm ready. Show me something. Help me understand this. Say it out loud, if you will. Say it in the morning. Showers are great. Water is very grounding. It's since humans probably co-evolved in some system of water at some point in our lives. Um, it does this amazing thing for getting rid of so much bad energy in our bodies. And medical science is well behind water hydrotherapy and getting in water when you take a shower or a bath. It's obviously another point to just let things go and see what comes into your mind. What are you seeing in your mind, right? And even if it's hormonally driven, what are you seeing about this thing that's in your mind? I mean, I'll talk to the other men like, you so we're all relaxed. What's coming through? Like, gee, maybe I should go on a date with so and so, or whatever. But yeah, the sexuality is very present with all people right there, and that's something we're always ignoring intellectually too during the era of the probably should be at the office for some points, right? But in some people more than others. But usually we get relaxed and the body's like, okay, I'm all relaxed. And so my sexuality or food or other basic drives are there. My animal wants to be fulfilled. I get that. But ask why. Why am I seeing this? And that fundamental question isn't just about reasoning, but it's like, oh, what is that interesting there? What's that telling me about what's going to happen tomorrow? So that's the kind of the other bridge between intuition and being the animal, I'd say. And there is a lot of practice around the energy reservation or not. But some of it is to do with either accepting our bodies and not being afraid of what we're experiencing, and then also saying like, why? Well, what am I going to see? What's going to happen in the next? Why I'm seeing this? Why I'm seeing that? What if I do keep eating the same thing I see myself eating, or compelled to go to the store to get to this new restaurant, for a week or every other week, and suddenly, well, guess what? I'm not having this pain in my back anymore. Maybe it was my kidney problem or something, and there's more turmeric in what I'm eating. I don't know. I'm making this up, but this is intuition acting in our lives every day. That is how we use the intuition we have. And our guides are there to put these things for us, or the universe and everything else. So um, just to conclude that, I would suggest also, beyond just breathing exercises, there's so many good ones, but using your nose to breathe in and out, affecting the base of the brain and the whole respiratory autonomic nervous system by doing that. The vagus nerve stimulation is very real. So for those of you who are sitting at home or doing something and want to try breathing through your nose and only through your nose during meditation, I strongly recommend that. Even though a lot of people do instinctively start breathing with their mouth when it's formal, we got to control that breath. Try it with your nose. It may just make a big difference for you. It'll make a big difference in your body in measurements, as far as like physiologically goes on with blood pressure and where your brain is at. And also nutrition. I mean, we also, everything we put in our mouths, if we're feeding our bodies high jet fuel all the time and sugar, well, and we're not burning jet like a jet, we are going to burn, our bodies are going to get resistant to that. And it just makes this crash where our brain is cloudier. I'll just put that out there. The better we can stick to a diet that's feeding our bodies and not our monkey frenetics of what, oh, this tastes good. And, I ate Doritos, therefore I want to eat more Doritos, not to do anything with the compounds in the Doritos that make us want to taste more Dorito all the time and program our brains. But it's just the idea of, why am I eating this? Ask the question. And you're going to start opening yourself up to even basic lifestyle choices that will make you inherently healthier and more intuitive. You're going to start saying, beyond that, you're going to start saying, oh, well, you're just start noticing things. People walk, you'll notice, well, that person walked by differently today. You'll probably start having insights around the people around you. I guarantee it. If you're mindful about, if you just ask why you're putting with your body for, give it a week, better yet, 28 days, because our bodies are synced up with everyone else's bodies with the moon, even as men. The opportunity is to say that, okay, so a lunar cycle's passed, or even better yet, 3 lunar cycles, or something to the 90-day period for a lot of things in business. And like, oh, wow, these changes have been profound. I'm breathing through my nose. I'm asking myself why I'm eating what I'm eating, at least at a basic level, and understanding what it's doing. I'm meditating by walking, perhaps, not even formally meditating. I'm not like going through some 10-step process. Those are great also. But if you want to get out of the layers to that, you can. And then just start observing and appreciating this. You will see a pattern. I guarantee it. Everyone is going to see out there is going to get these this pattern. And I'm going to say all the women who I know are intuitive are just do this more naturally. It is true. It's true. I think we as men carry on our shoulders this societal programming of, I'm going to be the animal and we live in this animal world. And I definitely did that too. It's, you got to, whatever, be the breadwinner, so to speak, or, raise the children and be the protector. That is the male psycho structure of our current industrial and before the era in some societies. But we are so much more than that. We have all the other equipment to be intuitive. We do have guides, whether you like it or not. You can shove them away all day, but they will share things with you, whether you call them angels or guides or your higher self. So that I'll conclude with that and say that's the basic. Everyone's got it. Everyone's already using it. It's just being aware. So
Yeah. And I loved what you said about food, because back 14 plus years ago, I was where we were living, we were restricted on the type of food we could access, etc., for various reasons. And I was saying to my wife, I'm not happy with what I'm eating and da 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 da. Anyway, long story short, a lady came along, visited us, and shared about a particular book that, for different eating habits. So I immediately went online, downloaded the Kindle version, and started reading it. And my wife was a bit apprehensive, like, oh boy, she knows what I can be like. And I read this book, and I just said to her, you can do what you want, but I'm changing my eating habits in line with this book. And I did it 100%. And I did not think I was overweight at all at the time. And I
Mhm.
thought, when I do this and I change my eating style, I'm probably going to lose 4 or 5 pounds. In 2.5 months, I dropped 25 pounds without trying. Like, I had no interest in losing weight because I didn't think I had excess weight on. And after 2 to 3 months, I started to see the world differently. And I've
Mm.
just stuck with it. It wasn't a diet, it was a eating habit. I just started eating differently. And if anyone's like, well, what did you change? The main thing I changed is I ate as little processed food as possible, and ate as much natural food as, fruit and vegetables. They're sprayed and they're fertilized and whatever. But, like getting away from the 110% processed food in a packet or a can or whatever, getting away. And I started seeing things differently. And it was like, yeah, it didn't happen in a week or two, but in 2 to 3 months, I started seeing the world differently. And that's where this journey's begun now, was,
Mm.
and I believe the frequency, the vibration of the food that we put into our bodies affects, it's got to, like, everything's resonating together. You get two tuning forks in different, that are different, and you strike them and they'll come into a line, like, so we align with what we're putting in our mouth. And if we're putting absolute shit in there all day long, like the processed food, because it's convenient and quick and easy, because
Mhm.
the label says it's low fat, it's no salt, it's all high fiber, all of these rubbish words that mean they have no meaning, or they
Mhm.
probably mean the worst frequency food you're ever going to put in your body in reality. Like so you get some stuff that's connected to the earth as much as possible. There's been as little intervention as possible from when the earth grew that thing to when it went into your mouth.
Mhm.
It's traveled the shortest amount of distance possible, and pop that into your mouth and start to experience those frequencies in your body. And it won't happen in days or weeks, but as the months go on, things will start to change. Just like you was talking
Yeah.
about the dog before, who said, my mission is to keep my human healthy because my energy helps balance their energy. The food will have a similar effect. It will help you, yeah, or won't take your life force away. It will make things more pleasant. And the more pleasant your life is, the more pleasant you make other people's lives. So, yeah, and I
Yeah.
loved what you said there.
There's absolutely a reverberation to all these energies. You nailed it, Doug. And I'm very, very impressed to hear you say that, because some people do very simple dietary changes, like also, eating during different times, not eating at midnight all the time every day. Obvious things like that, even if you're eating processed food. But yeah, I always think of it as farming your internal system too, the same vibrational things. All of your, if we look at all I see colors in people's guts, intestines, whatever, but it's the same. Colors are just a frequency of vibration. And the thing, like, you'll see different like spots or little groupings of where I'm guessing bacteria are living, or whatever other microorganisms are down there, yeasts, that are processing that food. And obviously what you feed them feeds us. And it's that same thing. It's like playing little notes, and either the notes are in a harmony that makes sense, or there's disharmony. It parallels to that for those people who are into music or sound. But in the same theory, there are fields of medicine evolving around this now in naturopathic medicine, with the whole frequency and energy frequency, like you're speaking to, in nutritive science. And feeding the microorganisms, there's William Blake's YouTube science, doctor science, with L. reuteri, selling cultures of it. But it's the idea of, you know, they're feeding these bacterial cultures, the cultures that make us who we are, and the proteins. Because you're eating a piece of broccoli doesn't mean our body is what we used to learn in third grade, breaking it down into us. The bacteria are making it into things that we absorb. Some of it goes straight up into our brain through the vagus nerve, and it completely change our life. And yeah, it takes weeks, months for that to happen. But yeah, it's the raw nutrient that's feeding the bacteria properly to be converted and given to us, and then feeding the right bacteria to take over all the bad ones. I don't think anyone's watching this who isn't familiar with, has had an intestinal issue probably in their life, of knows how bad that bacteria could be, and that you can constantly populate and repopulate them with eating processed food and junk. So that's kind of a direct mapping of just like, yeah, you're not going to be out of your fear body if your body isn't well to do that. And getting out of the fear body is the first step to intuition, and at least being aware and present with that.
Yeah. Wow. We've covered some territory today, like going through food, animals, frequencies, and many things that I'm not recalling right now. I think it's been an amazing interview. I'm going to put your contact details definitely in the show notes, so people who've got animals or they've got their own issues, challenges, things, fears, whatever, that they might want some help with, so that they can contact you and you can jump on Zoom, or if they happen to live near you, they could turn up, whatever, but it's a big world, so most of it would be online. Um, is there anything that we haven't talked about so far that you would like to add in before we wind up? Just, I don't want you to finish and think, oh, I didn't talk about that and I really needed to.
I mean, my passion project, when I'm relaxed and calm and working with people that are developing their intuitive gifts, is to help push people to accept that it exists in the universe. And the universe is just love and unconditional love. And that's why I start and end with everything. And when I'm being mindful, it's like, wow, this is not my enemy. I don't have any enemies. This is the whole other concept of living in this planet. There are no enemies. We are all one, progressing toward accepting love and growing in that love. And love is compassion, whatever you want to put from that. And that is one thing that I don't think I need to be speaking to, because we all know that. And that, like, there have been so many mystics and guides in this world very presently to help show us that path. And it's just a matter of acknowledging and accepting that. So that's probably the most also masculine challenge I can put out there to myself or anyone else. Man up and accept love and loving others. And that's not hugging and all the other, or inserting yourself into things, but rather compassion and listening and being aware of the appreciation of this other glowing, beautiful creation, and everyone else that we see is just that, and helping them get to that. That's always the challenge, looking past the things. So
Yeah. And something you just said there, it was like, I'm not sure exactly what you said now, but it just came to me like, now is the time. Like, compared to 30 years ago, it is definitely, there is so many more guides, so many more obvious things for men to realize. It's now time for us to evolve, move on, develop, whatever's the right word there, our lives, to tap into this. We've been, building our muscles. We've been doing what we do as men, protecting, providing. We're not trying to go woke. We're trying to like move to the next level, the next step, so that when there is issues, because I'm most people who are on social media or mainstream media are overwhelmed with information. And, there's so much coming through, and it's like, it all conflicts, and it's like, they said this, they said that, and it's all different, and I'm confused. But if we go into that intuition, we'll start to get inner knowings of what's right for us. And what's right for us might not be right for our neighbor, but we need to concern ourselves with us. We don't have to go and preach to our neighbor and tell them, hey, my guides told me this is the right thing to do. You should do it too. No, unless you're seriously told to do that. It's the message mostly is for you most of the time, for you to change yourself and develop. And the time is very ripe. It's ready now. I think so. Wonderful message you've given us. A million gold nuggets in there for us to, if we take out, just someone takes one thing that you talked about, it's going to improve their lives amazingly. So thank you so much for your time.
I'm honored, Doug. Yeah. Thank you.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think we will have a bit of a talk later on after the recording about our dogs. And absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Will.
Take care, Doug.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Well, we're at the end of another thought-provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever-reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition. It will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.